April 2025 marked a critical turning point for the U.S. economy. Over 2,200 American businesses declared bankruptcy, a staggering number that signals deep unrest. At the same time, the average tariff rate soared to nearly 28%, the highest it's been in over 100 years. The reaction was immediate and sharp when the U.S. announced new tariffs targeting over 150 countries. The S&P 500 index plunged, losing more than $5 trillion in just the first few days of April. This plunge ranks as one of the most severe in recent history. Why does this matter? Because it reflects a crisis of confidence among investors, the very engines fueling the American economy. When investor trust evaporates, capital dries up. Companies struggle to raise funds for expansion or day-to-day operations. The result? Economic disruption ripples from Wall Street down to Main Street. Small businesses and individual investors, already vulnerable, face heavy losses. The domino effect triggered by tariff policies shakes the financial sector to its foundation. The stock market isn't the only victim. American businesses are under immense pressure from soaring import tariffs. Retail giants like Walmart have publicly warned about the impossibility of keeping prices low as operational costs skyrocket. While the government expects businesses to absorb these burdens, the reality paints a different picture. Small and medium enterprises, already struggling, face crushing increases in raw materials, shipping, and production costs. Supply chains are severely disrupted. International suppliers hit by tariffs delay shipments and hike transportation fees. To stay afloat, many companies slash production or cut jobs, weakening their competitive edge both at home and abroad. Though tariffs are levied on imported goods, the real losers are American consumers. Studies reveal that up to 92% of tariff costs are passed on to buyers through higher prices. For example, a hoodie imported from Bangladesh can cost $7 more, while a microwave from China might jump nearly $30 in price. At a time when the cost of living is already soaring, these increases force consumers to cut back on spending or skip non-essential purchases. This shift hits retail, services, and domestic manufacturing hard. If prices continue rising, consumer spending, the backbone of the economy, could falter, slowing down overall growth. Unemployment sits at a seemingly stable 4.2%, but the numbers tell a more troubling story. Over 685,000 jobs have disappeared in recent months, especially in retail, transportation, and manufacturing sectors, all directly impacted by tariffs and global supply chain breakdowns. Job losses strain workers financially and erode consumer confidence, leading to reduced spending. Without jobs, the economy loses vital momentum. If tariff policies persist without support measures, unemployment could rise further, threatening social welfare and economic stability nationwide. The International Monetary Fund forecasts global economic growth at only 2.8% for 2025, well below earlier expectations. Some experts warn that 2.3% growth or lower signals an impending recession. Rising trade protectionism and supply chain disruptions have created global uncertainty. Key U.S. trading partners, including the European Union, Japan, and India, are steadily reducing dependence on American imports, moving toward a trade decoupling trend. This not only lowers trade volumes, but also shakes confidence in the U.S. as a reliable partner. The global economic future now faces serious questions about sustainability and resilience amid mounting risks. The global slowdown is fueling growing concerns over widespread job losses and shrinking investments worldwide. Without coordinated global action, these challenges could deepen, threatening a prolonged period of economic stagnation.
The number of container ships has dropped by 47%, and shipping costs from China have surged by 300% in just 10 days, directly impacting production and the distribution of goods. China halts Boeing deliveries, and U.S. ports face congestion. In April 2025, China halted Boeing deliveries, causing Boeing to lose $28.4 billion in just 48 hours. This wasn't only an economic decision, but a strategic move in response to new U.S. tariffs. Boeing, once a symbol of U.S. industry, is now a target in the trade war. This decision has led to the cancellation of several billion-dollar contracts and disrupted Boeing's production plans for the second half of 2025. Simultaneously, U.S. ports are grappling with severe congestion. The number of container ships has plummeted by 47%, and shipping costs from China have skyrocketed by 300% in just 10 days. The delay in contracts from Chinese shipping companies has caused a backlog of goods, especially in industries relying on Chinese components to maintain production. Amazon, one of the most affected companies, had to cancel over $67 million worth of orders. This is a massive shock to the U.S. consumer market, as products can't arrive on time, causing stock prices of many retail companies to plummet. The direct consequence? U.S. companies are facing severe supply chain disruptions, reducing production capacity, causing shortages of essential items, and driving inflation higher. Impact on the automotive industry and structural changes. The U.S. automotive industry cannot escape the crisis. Ford and GM have been forced to halt production of several vehicle models due to a shortage of key components such as microcontrollers and electronic parts. This has halted production lines, preventing the completion of many popular vehicles. This prolonged situation has caused car prices to rise dramatically. For example, the Ford Mustang Mach-E and Stellantis models saw a 6.8% price increase within just 1 week, an unprecedented surge in the automotive industry. In response to the disruption, Tesla has shifted Model 3 production to Berlin to reduce reliance on Chinese imports. Meanwhile, Toyota is adjusting its hybrid models to decrease dependence on semiconductors and parts from China. However, this is not a quick fix. The shift in supply chains has increased both the cost and development time of vehicles, resulting in higher car prices and longer delivery times. Moreover, China has restricted exports of rare materials such as dysprosium and terbium, crucial for the production of batteries and military equipment. This presents a significant challenge for the U.S. automotive and defense industries. Companies like Lockheed Martin and Ford are facing shortages of essential materials, and finding alternative sources from Australia or Canada will take at least until 2026 to be effective. Meanwhile, this shortage not only disrupts production, but also forces companies to compete fiercely for alternative supplies, driving up production costs and creating a large gap in the global supply chain. Production and global competition. While Tesla and other companies try to shift production, Rivian, Ford, and Chevrolet are ramping up competition with new electric vehicle models. However, rising component costs and longer delivery times have caused car prices in the U.S. to soar. Companies are facing reduced profits and a shortage of vehicles due to production disruptions. Issues ranging from supply chains to material shortages are forcing the global automotive industry to adapt quickly. Tesla and its competitors continue to search for partners to replace China. However, this process is far from simple and will take a long time. Can these changes help companies retain market share while minimizing the impact on consumers? The answer remains uncertain, but the emerging challenges are becoming increasingly clear.
Amazon responding to all of this in a statement saying, quote, "The team that runs our ultra-low-cost Amazon Whole store considered the idea of listing import charges on certain products. This was never approved and not going to happen."
Now, the Amazon White House rift this morning, that's just the latest example of this fraying alliance between tech and the second Trump administration, and one that had started with far more promise.
But I imagine you do when it comes to tariffs.
We look at all the things that could impact consumers and customers.
What's happening with Amazon and the U.S.? That's right, you read that right. Amazon is leaving. But the reason isn't just tax troubles. Get ready for this, because Trump is definitely going to lose it. Amazon has made a bold move by deciding to relocate its global headquarters out of the U.S. Why? Well, after Trump's administration imposed tariffs of up to 145% on goods from other countries, Amazon found itself dealing with sky-high production costs. These tariffs didn't just push up the price of Amazon's products, they also eroded its competitive edge against international companies that weren't facing these heavy taxes. With this increase in costs, Amazon was forced to make a tough decision. It couldn't keep up with international competition that was offering cheaper products. Trump's tariffs destroyed Amazon's pricing advantage, and the company needed a more favorable trade environment. The impact of Amazon's departure goes beyond the company itself. Thousands of workers now face relocation or job loss. Estimates suggest that more than 30,000 Amazon employees will be affected. That's a huge blow to the local economy, especially in Seattle, where Amazon had been a cornerstone for years. On top of that, Amazon's move has directly affected Seattle's housing market. Property values near Amazon's headquarters have dropped by 5 to 10%, leaving homeowners to face significant losses. Many small businesses are also closing their doors due to a lack of customers. And Seattle's city government has had to adjust its tax revenue projections with Amazon no longer in the picture. But Amazon didn't just sit idly by. It's actively looking for a new country to host its headquarters. 4 countries made the cut: Singapore, Ireland, Canada, and the UAE. The UAE stood out by offering a special tax package with up to 10 years of tax exemption, alongside access to a global logistics hub in Dubai. This deal would allow Amazon to lower its global operating costs while continuing to grow without the burden of high tariffs. The UAE's 0% tax policy and strong infrastructure made it the ideal choice, prompting Amazon to finalize its decision to move its headquarters abroad. As soon as Amazon began revealing the extra costs caused by the tariffs, the Trump administration couldn't keep quiet. The president and other officials demanded that Amazon halt its move, with some members of Congress calling for antitrust measures against the company. However, Amazon stood firm in its decision. According to leaked information, a private call between Jeff Bezos and Donald Trump ended with Bezos warning, "If you make it difficult for us, we'll leave." And just like that, in May 2025, Amazon confirmed its decision to relocate its global headquarters. Amazon isn't the only company making major strategic shifts. Apple has been lobbying the U.S. government to reduce taxes on Chinese parts, while Tesla is requesting tariff exemptions for a battery production facility in Indonesia. Big corporations aren't just sitting around anymore, they're actively reevaluating their strategies to source products from countries that don't have such heavy tariffs. Amazon's move has triggered a global ripple effect. Companies like Walmart are also adjusting their strategies to source products from other countries to minimize the impact of U.S. tariffs. This sends a loud message to the U.S. government. If tariffs aren't reasonable, major companies will have no problem relocating to more favorable business environments outside of America.
This warning from the CEO of the nation's largest automaker, General Motors, about the impact of the tariffs on the car industry.
He's announced a 25% tariff on all cars imported into the United States.
And it's likely to increase the prices for consumers.
Laying off 8,000 employees as it looks to cut additional costs.
GM has suspended production at its U.S. plants, cutting thousands of jobs, including 1,200 in Canada and nearly 200 in Michigan. This is not due to a recession or supply shortages, but a strategic decision to shift to electric vehicle production. Economic situation and GM's decision. GM, one of the biggest automakers in the U.S., has decided to stop production at several plants, directly affecting thousands of workers. This decision is not a result of a recession or chip shortage, but rather a bold strategy to shift towards electric vehicle manufacturing. As a result, 1,200 workers in Canada and nearly 200 in Michigan have been laid off, with over 500 workers possibly not returning once production resumes. This shift is causing cities like Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, to face severe economic downturns. Workers who have lost their jobs are worried about their futures, not only because of the jobs lost, but also because of the difficulty in finding replacement employment, especially as the auto industry is rapidly transitioning to electric vehicles. Moreover, car prices are rising, making it harder for consumers to afford new cars. The combination of rising car prices and job losses will put a significant financial strain on families, especially those dependent on the automotive industry. GM's move towards electric vehicles may be necessary to keep up with the trend, but it also leaves a range of unresolved issues for workers and the local economy. Donald Trump's reaction and global impact. Donald Trump immediately condemned GM's decision, calling it betrayal and threatening to impose a 25% tariff on all imported vehicles not produced in the U.S. This tariff policy not only targets GM, but also creates significant disruption for the entire automotive industry. Global manufacturers from the UK, EU, Japan to South Korea will have to adjust their production strategies to cope with this tariff. For GM, this response goes beyond profit loss. The company projects it will face losses up to $5 billion, mainly due to restructuring costs and changes in the supply chain. As essential raw materials for electric vehicle production, such as lithium, cobalt, and nickel, are mostly unavailable in the US and must be imported from Congo, Australia, and South America. This creates a major conflict between Trump's America First strategy and the globalization needs of electric vehicle production. The lack of these resources in the US makes it difficult to implement tariff policies and forces automakers to reconsider their investment and production plans in the US. This not only impacts major companies like GM, but also adds pressure on the entire global automotive industry. Long-term results and personal difficulties. It's undeniable that GM and other automakers face significant challenges as they shift to electric vehicle production. However, maintaining tariff policies only makes the situation harder. Legislators are considering support for displaced workers. But tariff policies could permanently fragment the U.S. automotive industry. Families, workers, and small businesses are facing difficult decisions. Postponing retirement, withdrawing children's tuition, or dealing with supply chain disruptions. They are facing severe financial difficulties while the car market becomes increasingly inaccessible. Global car manufacturers are reevaluating their investments in the U.S., which could cause further damage to the U.S. automotive industry. The community is also struggling with unemployment, reduced income, and the decline of the local economy. They're investing close to $1 billion and adding 5,000 new jobs in 2025. This move shatters rumors about plant closures and offshoring. So, what's driving GE to double down on U.S. production right now? Yes, tariffs on steel, aluminum, and components have raised costs by roughly 15 to 20%. But GE Aerospace is investing nearly $1 billion to modernize its U.S. facilities. How? By using automation, streamlining supply chains, and leveraging government support programs. More than that, the Made in America label is a strategic asset, safeguarding GE's global reputation and competitiveness. They know cost alone doesn't tell the whole story. Innovation speed, quality control, and supply chain reliability are just as critical. This commitment allows GE to respond quickly to market changes and reduce risks associated with long-distance supply chains. Local manufacturing also boosts collaboration between teams, leading to faster innovation cycles. GE understands that offshore production can introduce hidden costs, such as delays and quality issues, which can outweigh upfront savings. By investing in U.S. facilities, GE is building a more resilient and agile manufacturing network. That's why they're committing big to domestic manufacturing instead of moving offshore. While many companies chase cheaper labor in Mexico or Asia, GE is bucking that trend. They plan to hire 5,000 workers in 2025 to meet production growth and keep supply chains stable. Making products close to market cuts transport costs and delivery times and improves quality oversight. GE also benefits from a local ecosystem of suppliers, training centers, and skilled workers. This investment not only supports their operations, but helps strengthen the U.S. industrial base sustainably. In fact, by investing locally, GE contributes to a robust manufacturing hub that encourages innovation clusters and fosters industry collaboration. Higher energy costs are a challenge, but GE's modernization efforts include adopting energy-efficient technologies to help offset these expenses. This commitment underscores the company's belief that long-term sustainability outweighs short-term savings from relocating abroad. Expanding production means thousands of new jobs. Good news in regions still facing economic challenges. GE's commitment goes beyond hiring. They offer training programs to prepare workers for high-tech manufacturing. This boosts productivity and helps retain talent. Local communities tied to GE plants benefit from economic stability and growth. Keeping jobs reduces social pressures like poverty and migration. It's a clear example of corporate social responsibility in action. GE Healthcare faces about $500 million in annual losses from retaliatory tariffs. Yet, they're investing in domestic manufacturing instead of relocating overseas. Advanced tech, efficient processes, and tight supply chain control help lower long-term costs. Protecting intellectual property and being agile in the market reduces disruption risks. GE's approach is a big-picture strategy balancing cost, reputation, and sustainability. They're facing global trade challenges head-on with smart investments. Keeping high-tech production in the U.S. protects sensitive products like aircraft engines and medical equipment. Less long-distance shipping cuts. Greenhouse gas emissions, supporting environmental goals. Domestic plants can apply stronger environmental standards. These benefits create a competitive advantage as businesses face increasing pressure on security and sustainability. In short, GE's nearly $1 billion investment and 5,000 new jobs highlight that innovation, quality, and responsibility drive today's manufacturing, not just cost-cutting. This is a powerful signal about the future of American industry, one that's worth your attention. Over 1,500 John Deere workers in the U.S. lost their jobs within weeks. Thousands of parts are blocked due to Canada's tightened export policies, crippling the supply chain during peak season. John Deere, an American agricultural icon, is facing a serious crisis. Do you think this will impact the entire U.S.? Canada tightens exports, triggering John Deere and farmer crisis. John Deere, the steadfast symbol of American agriculture, is facing an unprecedented crisis. Did you know that in just a few weeks, thousands of workers at U.S. plants have lost their jobs? All because of one move by Canada, tightening exports of critical parts and nearly paralyzing John Deere's long-standing supply chain. What's remarkable is that Canada didn't need threats or loud protests. They simply tweaked a small clause in export regulations. Yet that tiny change created massive barriers. Factories from Iowa to Nebraska had to halt operations, with workers left watching silent machinery unable to run. Can you imagine bustling showrooms once filled with green and yellow tractors suddenly going empty? John Deere dealers face severe parts shortages, and farmers, right in the middle of harvest, struggle with broken equipment they can't fix in time. Harvests are disrupted, yields drop, and the livelihoods of millions of American farmers are shaken. Hard to believe, isn't it? Widespread socioeconomic impact and government response. The crisis at John Deere isn't just an agricultural problem, it's triggering a severe ripple effect across rural American communities. Can you imagine? When machinery shortages cause farmers to lose income, who's left to shop at local stores? Countless shops are forced to close due to lack of customers. Banks lose revenue and tighten credit, making it even harder for people to get loans. This leads to heavy consequences for local schools. They have to cut budgets and reduce education programs, directly impacting the future of an entire generation. Meanwhile, Midwestern states like Iowa, Michigan, and Ohio are now pleading with Canada for relief while racing to attract foreign investment to salvage the situation. But here's the thing. The federal government still hasn't offered strong enough solutions to turn things around. This is fueling growing frustration and worry among citizens and local leaders. This isn't just an ordinary economic issue, it's a dangerous warning sign for the whole country. Do you think America is facing a crisis far bigger than we realize? Market shift, farmers turning to Chinese and Korean machinery. An unexpected turning point. Many John Deere dealers have started importing machinery from China and South Korea to keep their operations running. Brands once viewed as foreign outsiders are now gradually capturing the rural American market. Companies like BYD, NIO, and Hyundai are seizing this opportunity to rapidly expand their market share. Do you think this shift is just a temporary alternative? Or will it completely reshape the American agricultural landscape? As farmers are forced to choose for survival, this could mark a major turning point, signaling a permanent change. This shift isn't merely a short-term substitution, it's deeply transforming long-held habits and trust among American farmers, heralding a new era in the highly competitive and dynamic agricultural machinery market. Strategic warning, a lesson on economic power and the future of U.S. manufacturing. The John Deere paralysis isn't just an economic incident. It's a stark warning about the economic power wielded by neighboring countries. With a small policy change, Canada has pushed an American manufacturing icon to the brink of collapse. This serves as a reminder that the U.S. must restructure its supply chains and manufacturing strategies if it wants to maintain its global leadership. John Deere. Workers, farmers, and American agriculture stand at a historic crossroads. What do you think? Can the U.S. adapt and revive, or will it lose much of its position in global agriculture? Walmart reports a 4.5% increase in sales growth, but also warns of major price hikes due to Trump-era tariffs. The Walmart CEO says the company can no longer absorb the pressure, and American consumers, especially in red regions, will be hit hardest. Price hike warning. Walmart has just issued a warning that product prices are set to rise sharply in the near future, with the primary cause being the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration on imported goods. Although Walmart's revenue has increased by 4.5% compared to the same period last year, CEO Doug McMillon stated that the company can no longer absorb the rising costs from these tariffs. Given its massive scale and presence in nearly every region, Walmart simply cannot continue to absorb these higher costs without adjusting prices. This means consumers will be the ones bearing the burden of these changes. American consumers will face the direct consequences of these tariff policies. In particular, people living in red areas, where Walmart holds a dominant market share, will feel the impact most acutely. In these regions, Walmart is not only the most popular store, but often the only source for essential items like food, diapers, and medication. As prices for these necessities rise, residents in these areas, who often lack alternative options, will be hit the hardest. These tariffs don't just influence the price of products, they directly affect the daily lives of people who rely on Walmart for basic necessities. As a result, their standard of living is clearly impacted. In the end, consumers in these regions will be forced to pay more for the essentials, an outcome they can hardly avoid. Tariffs and the consumer impact. When people hear the word tariffs, many assume it's a tool to make other countries pay more. But the reality is quite different. Tariffs aren't costs paid by foreign nations. They're ultimately borne by American consumers. Major retailers like Walmart cannot continue absorbing all the increased costs from tariffs and are forced to raise product prices to compensate. Walmart, with its strong presence in rural areas and red regions, where support for tariff policies is often highest, will be the first place consumers feel the impact of rising prices. Essential everyday items like food, baby diapers, and medicine, products that most families depend on, will become more expensive. In these areas, Walmart isn't just a popular store. It's often the only store offering these necessities. As prices go up, residents have no choice but to accept higher costs. That's why these communities become the hardest hit by tariff policies. With no affordable alternatives available, they face growing financial pressure, increasing the burden especially on low-income families. Price pressure and the silent long-term effect. Although tariffs on some Chinese goods have been temporarily reduced to 15%, price pressures have not eased. Walmart, like many other retailers, has stated it can no longer absorb losses to maintain old prices, and as a result, it will have to raise product prices. This isn't a sudden shift. It will unfold gradually and quietly. Consumers won't notice it immediately, but over time, they'll feel the rising cost of living. Essential items like food, baby diapers, and medicine, things most families need daily, will become more expensive. In fact, these changes may occur without consumers fully understanding the cause, making them feel the impact only at the checkout. This is a long-term burden consumers will have to bear, one that will slowly strain household budgets across America, especially among low-income families. Who suffers most? And a question to ponder. So, who suffers the most from these tariffs? It's the working class, low-income earners, and especially families in rural areas where Walmart is king. They'll feel the price pressure more than anyone else. And that raises a big question. Do these policies really put American people first, as claimed? The answer might make you rethink everything. Ask yourself, is this a war over money, where the American consumer is the real loser?